So let's see how this goes. It's the hard part, getting down to my hands and knees. So I've got my wallpaper, just going to unfold that, make it easier, make sure you've got it the right way up, and the pattern is in the appropriate position. I'm just going to overlap that a little bit at the top, just a little bit over that dado rail. Make sure it's upright, and it's only a little piece this time. I'm going to go with the normally I set a plumb line to work the paper to, but this time as it's only a little piece, I'm just going to run to the side of the architrave here, because that's really what you're going to judge it against, I think, at this stage. So hopefully you're going to see how to use either the wallpaper hanging brush or a clean sponge. So just going to push the bubbles, push the paper, keep pushing the paper. So there's any bubbles either go out. So the bubbles either go out to the side or to the bottom. So then I'm just going to use my finger just to run along the bottom of that dado rail. So that should do that, and then I'm going to do a similar thing. You can't see it from where you are, but I just use my fingernail just to go along the edge of that piece there, just down to the bottom, and similarly at the bottom. Just going to push that in. Bit of a rough old bottom there, but hopefully we can pick it up enough. So in the past what I've done is I either leave it on like that, let it dry overnight, and then trim the excess paper off tomorrow, which I find it's easier to trim it when the wallpaper adhesive is dry. But it's probably not the most professional idea, but it's one idea I picked up when I was a teenager, and it seemed to work quite well for me. But the key to it is when you get the line scored with your fingernail or with your scissors, just to sort of hold it back off the dado or off the skirting board. Just lift it back up so as you don't get stuck to that. And then if we let that dry overnight like that, and then in the morning when you come back, you should be able to just cut it with a sharp a knife, like I've shown in some of my other videos. If you find it doesn't cut and it sort of snags a bit, probably means either your knife is blade is too blunt, so put a new one in, or the paper is potentially still a little bit wet. So just going to go around with the little edge of the scissors, just gently. Just put that in there like that, give you a nice sort of edge to work to. We go down there gently. Hopefully the brush or the sponge, whichever you use, has removed the air bubbles. But just by doing a little piece like this initially, it gives you a bit of an idea how you might approach it. So just going to use my little sharp knife. Careful with this because it's obviously very sharp. And I'm just going to cut this just along dado rail. It's coming off reasonably sharp. Just starting to bind there a bit. This is what I don't like. That's why sometimes, as I say, let it dry overnight, because then you don't get that problem. The other thing is that you can use a rounded bladed knife, which then doesn't sort of stick in and snag the paper so much. Cause a bit of a problem there, which is a bit of a pain. Anyway, there we are. Once that's painted, so that's the principle. That's reasonably clean. And the other way you can do it is to now you've got your line, is you can take the paper back slightly and then cut it with a pair of scissors. But you have to make sure you cut the line accurately with the scissors, because quite often I end up cutting it a bit too short. So that's why I quite like the idea of cutting it afterwards with the knife when it's it's dried off, but each to their own. Just carry on doing that and see how it ends up. So you're going to have to take my word for it. That's now cut that reasonably neatly along there, and it's reasonably neat along the top edge there. So I'm going to show you another method now. As we're going to be painting this paper, I'm just going to put a pencil line just along the score mark that I've put on the paper here. So just going to follow that edge of the top of the skirting board with my pencil. If I was doing this with a paper that had a proper pattern on it and you weren't going to actually paint over it, I'd probably just score it with the scissor end of the scissors and then cut to that line. What you need to do now is to pull the paper away a bit and then just sort of cut. You need a good sharp pair of scissors, by the way. Just cut along there nice and neatly. Follow your line, and hopefully it should follow the edge of the skirting board. Sometimes I find I've cut it a bit short in the past, so we'll see what happens here. That's not too bad today. Today, this time I've gone back to using the Solvite wallpaper paste, which you mix yourself from the sachets, and I find that does give you a bit more working time, especially if you're working in an older house. This is a Victorian house, and the old walls do tend to soak up the adhesive, so you can size the walls, which is a way of putting a bit of glue onto the walls, a sort of thinner solution, just to stop the adhesive being sucked off the wallpaper into the wall and stopping the paper sticking. But those of you who know about these things will see that inappropriately and improperly I have wallpapered on top of existing wallpaper, but A, because I don't have a great deal of time, and B, because this particular wallpaper has been well secured to the walls, and it is giving some sort of protection. If there were any bits that were sort of loose or sticking up, I'd either stick those down first or cut off any that were going to sort of cause any major bulges or irregularities. But generally speaking, once this is painted, I'm sure it will look fine. So we'll just let that dry overnight, and then we'll be ready to give it a few coats of emulsion. I'll probably put certainly 2 coats of emulsion on it, maybe 3. Certainly if I was papering a ceiling, then I would probably put 4 coats of emulsion onto it to make a reasonably good job. So we aspire to average, and occasionally we achieve it. So I hope you might have found this a little bit useful. If you have, please do give it the thumbs up, and please do subscribe. Then I can continue to help Acorns Childrens Hospice Worcester and Mind. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who will put comments in the comments section which will offer other advice and guidance, so you may well find those very, very helpful. Hopefully you will, and hopefully people will be happy to comment. Quite happy to have comments, whether they're negative or positive, as long as it actually helps the people who are ultimately watching the videos. So I don't claim to be an expert, but have been doing it off and on for quite a few decades. Then finally I'm just going to give this a wipe over with either a damp clean cloth, or with warm water on it, or a clean sponge with warm water, and just to get any residual paste off the paper, particularly if it's coloured paper with a proper pattern on. But this paper looks pretty, to have gone on pretty clean. There doesn't seem to be much residual paste on it, so we do that. If you work with the paper from top to bottom, then if there are any more bubbles in it, then those will hopefully disappear. Here we are, so that'll all dry up nicely, and as the paste dries, any smaller bubbles or imperfections will probably dry out, but what you need to do is to try and get rid of pretty well all the bubbles you can, and then you should have a very good result.